We got the block in the cutter. See if I can get this camera lined up right. So what I'm going to attempt to do here, if I can get a good camera angle, I'm going to get this wing cut. So I got the taper set on the door. Okay, I got all the cables set. I've done a dry run on the templates, so I think I'm good to go. So let me set this camera down here. I got this camera on a cell phone. So let's see how it goes. I'm not sure. With this cutter, it's hard to get everything lined up just right, so you get able to see what's going on. I'll see if I can turn this TV on. Get the TV going so I can see the comments anyway, or try to watch them anyway. So I got the power hooked up. Basically, it's ready to go. Now, there's one other thing I've got to do here. This is something after the fact that I sort of learned. In order to keep the foam blanks from falling away, I put a little piece of tape over the wire, so that way when the cut's finished, the shucks or the outside of the core, the shucks, whatever you call them, they don't fall off the core. So I got everything set up. I just make sure that I'm in the pulleys, and then I make sure I'm centered where I need to go. What I like to do is turn it on and then turn the voltage up slowly until I start to get the cut I need. And it's usually about 16 to 18 volts. That's pretty much where this cutter works the best. Now, I'm cutting from the leading edge first, and this template that's on there is set up to where it'll have like a little ridge that needs to be sanded down. So I don't get the final radius from the foam cutter. I've got to run a little sandpaper over it, take the tick mark off. Now, Bob Hunt told me about the leading edge first, and I tried to do it, and it seemed like it worked out a little bit better. It's a little bit more forgiving if you come from the leading edge first. So it might be obvious that it's not going very fast. This is the speed that seems like it works out best for me. So you just have to judge where you're going to get the best cut, how your templates work out. I had to move the bow over a little bit. It was sort of rubbing against the edge of the cutter over there. put my thumb on the trailing it or the root, speed it up just a little bit, and I wait till the shuck. You can see that the shuck sort of drop back down. Make sure my wires have already gone through. And hook it. Got a little waviness in it. I'll adjust the wire a little bit. So let's come over here. Let's take this camera off this monopod. Let's take a look and see what we got here. So on this core, it's a little rough up here. With this core, this little tick mark, I'll probably come back 1/4 inch. And this is the one I was going to glue the leading edge on. So it's a little rough up here. But I think, you know, overall, turned out pretty good. Now what I'll do, if I get a core like this and it's got little, like a little more melt away in a certain spot, I'll just put a little spackling on it. And these probably 2 or 3 cores. This is the second one I've cut. They're sort of like an experimental phase. These are SIG pins. What are they? Number 4 or number 20. It doesn't say. It says 4 ounces, number 32. So SIG obviously is not in business, but it's called SH487. These probably, I don't know, 1/16 inch thick. I'm sure it's a wire gauge. You can use nails. I've got some templates that are drilled out for nails. I just drill these out for these pins. These pins are small enough to where, you know, the holes really disappear. So to line these things up, sort of start at the trailing edge. And don't worry about getting it perfect right off the bat. Hit it close. And I'll come back to the leading edge. push the pin about halfway in. And I'll come back here. Make sure I'm still lined up. I'll put another pin in. And then if I'm lined up, I'll push it all the way home. You got to make sure the pin stays within the template. And if it's not lining up, at this point with just one or two pins, you can start squeezing it back and forth. And obviously you got to make sure you get the leading edge. Get the leading edge of the template. Don't flip your templates around. Sometimes it's easy to do. I don't utilize all these holes. So each time I poke a pin in, I go back and make sure that I'm still lined up. You get glue on some of these pins, they don't want to go in those little holes. These holes are cut really tight. It's a wire gauge drill to match the pin. I put a lot of pins in there. I don't want them scooting around. Make sure you get one all the way out. And I'll put one more up here. Alright, let's take the old camera over here and see if I can get a different shot here. Set this down here on the floor. So I always cut with the root to my left, just the way Try to do the same thing each time, the way you set it up. So this one I'm doing the trailing edge first. Already got it loaded this way. Let's try. It'll come out all right. We'll compare it. Alright, make you dizzy here. I'll hand hold this thing. So I got the door pulling on it. Come down here, the old variac. It's looking at what, about 18, 19 volts. So as it's pulling, we got the root to the left and that here, the tip. And you can probably tell a little bit that we got a farther fulcrum point to the left. So the left cable is going to be pulling a little bit faster than the right cable. Now these turnbuckles, you see the turnbuckle right there. So when you adjust the length of the taper, in other words, you slide these bars back and forth here, these bars, to get the right taper between the root and the tip. When you make an adjustment here, you're going to have to go back to the turnbuckle and adjust the length of your string. And you keep playing between the ratio of your door to the turnbuckle, so you just keep going back and forth till you get the root to the tip tapered the way you want it. So let's see if we can get a, you see that going around the tip here. Now at this point I try to keep an eye on things. It looks like I'm moving a little bit faster at the tip, but I think we're going to be all right. And as soon as the things fall away, you're done. Now, yeah, and we're back. You ever Spitfire cut a wing? No. When you get into the elliptical stuff, I've never messed with it. It'd be fun to try. I told somebody, I said, if you'd want to cut, and it would be tricky to do, if you wanted to cut like the shark wing, you know how you come up here on a shark wing at the root, and then if you look at it from the leading edge, it tapers down to the tip. It's not a straight line. You could take your foam cutter, especially if you cut one side at a time, and you'd bow your foam up. So you take your foam that's normally flat and you'd bend it. So by the time your cut was finished, when the flex went back to straight, you'd have the arc in it. When it gets to that point, I'll find somebody with a 3D printer and print me a wing, and I'll make a mold off of it, and it'll be a composite wing, just like a shark or something. Okay, let me set this camera down over here, and use both hands to get that wing out of the cutter. Yeah, my neighbor stopped by earlier. He likes to stop by and talk. Puppy out of there. Let's see what we got here. Since we start at the trailing edge first. So yeah, there's a little sanding to be done here. Little tick marks here. It's not that good, but it's close. It's going to be close enough to actually get my landing gear clip templates out of it. And a little sanding, I have to be really careful, you know, make sure I don't sand in the wrong shape. But it's good. Now, if you're actually sewing these wings, and you're going to sew the raw wing, you want it to be perfect. It'll be perfect, but you got to take a sanding bar to sand this little tick out of it, because basically what had happened out here, the wire came off of the template and sort of free floated over the template right here at the end. So I got to sand it down a little bit. So the wing is still going to be accurate, but there's going to be a little touch up. This camera, you never know what. Let's see here. Keep this camera focused on what I'm doing. So, to get that little tick mark out of there, you want to use a sanding bar that's the length of the core. So the beauty of having the center line completely around your core is you always have a reference. This one got a little wavy here. All I'm trying to do right here, just sand the fuzz off of it. The other thing you'll notice when you have these templates, the wire might be a little bit cooler right here. So when you run a sanding bar the full length across your wing, you're going to see out here it's sanding just a little bit more. So even though you make the templates as accurate as you can get them, or let's say they're perfect, you still have to be careful when you start sanding on this thing. You're not really changing shape. Get rid of the fuzz and get a satiny look, and then you're good to go. Can't really tell, but basically when I'm sanding this core, I'm sanding pretty much with just the weight of the sanding bar. So for some reason, try to keep this thing in focus. So as I work my way back and forth on this core, I can always come back and reference where I'm at from that center line. Another thing I like to do, I'll take the bar, I'll slide this bar down the core to make sure everything is even, no dips. So it looks good. You got to be careful when you're sanding the fuzz off. Once it breaks loose, go ahead and get it off the core. Otherwise it'll ball up and it'll make little ridges in your core. Now the way this core is set up, if I wanted to, I could radius the rest of this and be alright. But I'm going to, on this core, I'm going to flatten that some more and put a 1/4 inch on it. If you have Steve's plans of this airplane, his plans are drawn super accurate. He's very specific on his core. He's got different wing sheeting thicknesses. The other thing you can do, once you start sanding, let's say you get a little tick mark, put this template back on there, line it up, and you can see where I could probably take just a little bit more right off here. I could bring it down a little bit. But whatever method you use, whether it's a solid leading edge or the molded, make sure that you actually get it perfect. Yeah, it's needs to be sanded a little bit more. So I'm pretty happy with this, so I can make it work. This one isn't quite as good. I might cut this over. The other thing, when you're cutting wings, when you're in this stage, and let's just say you cut 2 panels and it didn't come out just right, but it's accurate. Maybe you got some tear out where there was some hard spots in it. Whatever the case might be, still use it. You can always use it to use it as a mold buck to mold sheeting, or so there's always a use for just about everything. So I'm just going with the weight of the bar. So that's about all I wanted to cover on phase 2. Just wanted to run it through the cutter. I've got some videos that were probably standalone that explain it a little bit more. And probably phase 3, once I get these sanded, we'll probably turn the camera back on later this week or the weekend, and we'll cut some spars and some clips, and I'll try to take you all the way through the sheeting of different methods, the molded leading edge, and a couple other variations, but we'll keep plugging away at it. You see a different elevation, build a permanent dihedral wash in. Yeah, different elevations. I think I know what you're talking about, Steve. What they're talking about, if when I laid these cores out, when I did the center line on this core, I made sure that I'm reference off the bottom of the wing. So if the center line's not in the center perfectly, it's still on the same plane because it's referenced off the glass from the bottom. Okay. The other thing you do, once you get all this thing sanded or you work it and you think, okay, it's where I want it to be, put it back in the cradle and then run the gauge around it. You know, you've got these center lines, and you can take a height gauge with a pencil, or you could take a height gauge with a pen. But if everything's right off the glass to the bottom of the cradle, once this wing goes back in it, it's going to be good. But you can double check it by coming back and checking that center line. So yeah, you don't want twists, you don't want wash in, wash out. That was the thing on a Nobler. The Nobler wing, I remember the green box Nobler. I was in Jack's hobby shop. And he said if you built this thing to the plans, you'd have washout in it. So if you remember, the thickness at the trailing edge on a green box Nobler was thick at the root, narrow at the tip. So it wasn't a constant thickness here at the trailing edge. And what people do, they build it flat on the bench, and being thicker at the root and tapering at the tip, when you weight it down or you pin it down to the bench, it actually pushed the tip at the trailing edge down. So I guess you'd call it washout. So yeah, the center line's important. So anyway, I'm going to jump off here. I'll get to the next step later on this week and turn the camera back on. And thanks for coming by, and if I missed some comments, sorry about that, but I try to watch the TV screen on and off, and I do miss some, but thanks for watching and commenting. See, root. Let me read some. Center line, the root is. Okay, with center line, the root is centered on the line. Can opposite end of the wing, the template slightly above the line. As long as the center lines were on the same, not the same plane, but as long as they're aligned from root to tip, it would probably be all right. Yeah, the Spitfire. Yeah, I think I understand where your comments are coming from in there when you're talking about warping the wing for the Spitfire and stuff. So, yeah, that gets into some crazy stuff there when you get into all these different tapers. But anyway, thanks for coming by, and we'll do some more later.